Welcome to the Blogger Genius Podcast, brought to you by MiloTree. Here's your host, Jillian Leslie.
Hello, my friends. Happy New Year. I hope you had a wonderful holiday. Mine was very restful, and I'm excited to be back. So welcome back to the Blogger Genius Podcast. I'm your host, Jillian Leslie. I am a blogger and serial entrepreneur. I've started with my husband, Catch My Party, our MiloTree pop-up app, and now our new payment tool for selling digital products, MiloTree Cart. Now, before I get started with today's episode, which I think you're going to really enjoy, I wanted to talk about a new tool I have been playing around with called ChatGPT. This, my friends, is a game changer. It is an AI writing tool where you can ask it to write on anything in any sort of style, and the results are pretty incredible. And currently, it is free. I recommend you Google right now ChatGPT and get an account. I don't know if they are limiting the number of new users, but this is the future. What does this mean for blogging, for creating, for all of this? Well, nobody really knows. However, it's kind of exploded. I think they launched it at the end of November, and it's going to disrupt a lot of things like high school English class, where you could use it to write your English papers. However, what I have found is that it is incredibly helpful as an idea generator. In fact, I had Markee back on the show, 6 months ago, and he's an SEO expert. And he was saying that Google does not want you to use AI tools. And I get that, because all of a sudden the internet might explode with just AI content. However, as a content creator, I do love using ChatGPT to give me ideas, to help me think about things in new ways, and then whatever they give me, I rewrite, but it gets me 60% of the way there. Now, where ChatGPT is also so helpful is in creating digital products. You know, I'm always talking about how this is the way to grow your business. This is the way to build the relationship with your audience. This is how you find people who want to purchase from you. Well, I am hosting a VIP workshop just for people who have purchased MiloTree Cart. So if you go to milotreecart.com and purchase it before January 10th, you will be invited to this workshop where I'm going to go through ChatGPT, show you how I use it, show you how to create a product, set it up, and sell it. So if you are ready to get serious, I am ready to get serious with you and hold your hand through the whole process. So please go to milotree.com, purchase our lifetime deal for $349. Pay for it once, own it forever. And we give you a 30-day money-back guarantee, no questions asked. I do not want you to keep this if you do not love it. My goal here is to motivate you, to get you creating products, get you selling them, get you monetizing. So if this sounds good to you, go to milotreecart.com, purchase, come to my workshop. It's going to be a blast. For today's episode, I have my friend Kristi Dosh on the show, and boy, is she busy. She's doing a lot of interesting things in the world of blogging. For example, she has a sports blog, she has a travel blog, and she just bought her first aged domain, which we're going to get into in the episode. She's also been doing a deep dive into SEO and shares her strategies. So without further delay, here is my interview with Kristi Dosh. Kristi, welcome to the Blogger Genius Podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. This is my favorite podcast to listen to, and I can't believe I'm finally on as a guest. So thank you for having me.
Thank you. That means so much. So when did you first discover the podcast?
I think it was end of 2019 because it was before the pandemic and I was kind of preparing for something I knew was coming in my industry. And so I didn't know you. I found you just through a search in my podcast app. And I thought, blogger genius. Yes, that's what I need. I need some blogging genius in my life. And I ended up going back and listening to all of your back episodes over the next few months and just totally binged it. And I think now I have listened to every episode you've ever done.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Because then so Paula Rollo is a good friend of mine. She's an SEO expert. And so you heard her on my podcast and reached out to her, then started working with her.
Yes. So I think by that point she had done at least 2 episodes, probably 3 by the time I heard her. So when the first one I listened to was so good, I went back and I realized she had done others with you and listened to those too. And I got such actionable advice just from the podcast. I mean, things that I could go back and do right away. And I could tell either that it was helping immediately or, it made a lot of sense to me. And I knew that long term it was going to help me. And so I reached out to her and asked how she worked with folks because I knew that in my industry, there was a ticking clock. There was a big thing that was coming in my space and I needed to be ready for it. And at that point, it was about 6 months out. And she did a site audit for me and dug right in and got me ready for it. And you won't even believe how much my numbers have grown. And I feel like so much of it is because of Paula. She is the best.
She is the best. She is the best. Anybody who wants to do a site audit, contact Paula Rollo at paularollo.com. But then you reached out to me and you were like,
Yes.
Hey, I'm going to be in Austin. Do you want to have coffee? And I was like,
and you said yes.
Sure.
I couldn't believe it.
And so we met for coffee and it was so fun. And I got to hear all about your business. And again, it's that thing where people online. And then as soon as you meet them in real life, it's just this connection that I can't explain. It's why I always recommend people go to conferences, like meet up with people in your space, because as soon as you meet them, there is just, I don't know, you like we are friends, in real life. And so it was like when I was thinking about people with interesting businesses, I was like, oh my God, I haven't had you on the podcast. You need to come on the podcast.
Well, I'm so excited to finally be on it because I've been listening to it for so long. And I feel like you do, there are very few people in my life who get what I do. If you take out the people that I have met like you through seeking out information in my field, as far as my close family and friends, I'm lucky that actually my husband is a blogger too. And like me, we both come from journalism backgrounds and we both still write for publications outside of running our own blog. So he gets it to some degree, but I'm far more advanced than he is when it comes to the technical side of things and SEO. That is not his strong point. And so a lot of things I want to talk to him about, he's not there yet. They're a little over his head. And so it's so nice to meet other people who get what you're trying to do and that you can have a conversation with about what is and isn't working. It's magical when you meet those kind of people.
I agree. It's why I remember being a mom with my daughter in preschool and saying, I have this site called Catch My Party, and people thought it was cute. Like what I did was cute. And I'm like, no, it's a business. And, it's a big business. And like, they had no idea. I was just like a mommy blogger. And I was like, no, you don't get my world. And then I would talk to people in our space who would like take it seriously. And I'd be like, okay, finally, these are my people.
Yeah. My mom's like, what am I supposed to tell people that you do? Because I was a corporate attorney before what I'm doing now. And that was easy for her. She said, my daughter is a corporate lawyer. And now people ask her what I do. And she's like, I don't know.
Something on the internet. My dad has no idea what I do. I agree. Okay. Let's now go backward. And because we're teasing out all of these things, and I want people to understand where you come from and what you do.
Yeah. So well, like I said, was a corporate attorney, but I actually started blogging before I was an attorney. I am like a OG blogger. I started on Blogspot in 2004, the summer before I went to law school. So I've been doing this for 18 years now. Like I could have raised a child and sent them off to college the amount of time I've been blogging. So I really, I always enjoyed writing from the time I was a small child. I entered all kind of writing contests growing up, but I also always wanted to be an attorney. So it's not like I pursued a career as a writer. now looking back, I realize that I chose corporate law because it is transactional law. You don't ever go in a courtroom. You draft documents all day. So even when I was a lawyer, I was writing all day for my day job. And then I was blogging at night and on the weekends. And so blogging's been a big part of my life for a very long time. I just didn't know how to make money from it until the last few years. So I've been writing into the black hole for years and years and years, but really am able to do it full time now.
Now, to explain how this sports angle comes into this. Wait, and then
Yeah,
we've got a travel angle.
Yeah. So that very first blog I started was about applying to law school. And then I kept it up through my first year of law school. And then after my first year, like I just wasn't that interested in writing about law school anymore. I was experiencing it every day. I didn't need to write about it. And so during my final year of law school, I started a blog to write about legal issues in sports that was really driven by a class I was taking on sports law, some of the things I was researching and working out. And I just like had this compulsion to write about these things and put them out there somewhere that no one read. I mean, still like that blog is out there somewhere. But no one read that really. It was just a creative outlet for me. I never meant for it to go anywhere. I knew what I was going to do. I had already taken a job offer from a big firm in Atlanta, where I'm from. I knew I was going to be doing corporate securities work. I knew that writing and sports were not going to be a part of my future at that point, but I still had this like compulsion to write those things. It's a longer story than this, but I ended up kind of getting myself into a niche writing about legal and financial issues in college sports. And back then, nobody really wrote about that side of college sports. And I started an entirely new blog in early 2011 about the business of college sports. And it is called businessofcollegesports.com. Not a real creative title.
No,
However, what I learned later was great SEO.
Great SEO.
I sort of happened onto it and then realized that it took off, and I kind of rode the wave of it taking off. And right time at the right place for anyone who's listening who's a college sports fan. 2010, 2011 was this huge period of conference realignment where schools were moving around to different sports conferences. And that blew up the traffic on my website because I had the financial data showing why schools were making those decisions. And all these big sports sites started linking to me. I mean, I had a free little WordPress blog. I had spent like no money on this blog. And now ESPN and Fox Sports and the Washington Post and the New York Times were linking to my little sports blog. That really, being in the right place at the right time and having that content ultimately changed my career. I ended up in a 4-week period getting a book deal to write a book based on my website and getting a full-time job offer from ESPN to go be their sports business reporter. So my tiny little free WordPress blog that I still have today, 11 years later, changed the entire course of my career. It was not something I ever imagined was going to happen. I thought I would be a corporate lawyer for the rest of my life, but here I am 11 years later, still writing about sports.
We are friends on Facebook, and I'm always like, where's Kristi now? Like, you are traveling all the time. I see you in all these cool places where you are speaking, and I'm so psyched for you, but I'm like, oh my God, she's like on the road all the time, which, by the way, then how does travel blogging fit into this?
So I went on a press trip where a destination or a hotel or someone else invites a group of writers to come to see something. So I went on that as a sports writer to cover, I think it was a new golf course. And I got there, and usually when I would go on a trip like that, the other writers who would be on the trip would also be sports writers. But in this case, they weren't. They were all travel writers. And I guess I knew travel writing was a thing, but I'd never met someone who was a travel writer. And so I'm with this group of travel writers, and they're telling me like how they got their start. And several of them had actually gone through a big conference in-person sort of event that teaches beginner travel writers. They had all just been through that together, and they were telling me about it. And I thought, well, I travel all the time anyway for my sports stories. I did a lot of writing on new facilities in sports. So I would go all over the country to see new arenas and stadiums and everything. And so I thought, well, I'm already doing the travel and I know how to write. I know how to pitch publications. I could write about travel. So I actually went back to my hotel room on that trip, looked up the class that they had taken in person because they had let me know that it was also available online. And I bought the travel writing course in my hotel room that night. And that sort of started my travel writing journey. And I'm married to someone who's also a journalist. And so he was in sports and I came home and I told him about it. And today he has actually completely left the sports industry and he is an art and travel writer full time. So that press trip I went on changed both of our lives.
Wow. And was this course about monetizing? So you're not necessarily explain the difference between a travel writer and a travel blogger.
That's a really good question. So a travel writer, in my definition and the way I use the words, is a travel writer writes for publications. So for example, I just turned in a piece this morning for AARP about travel. So I've written for Pop Sugar and AARP and a whole host of publications about travel. So however, I'm also a travel blogger. So you can be both.
Of course you are.
So I write for publications, but I also have my own travel blog. And actually now I have two. Not to get too in the weeds, but I just bought my first aged domain 2 months ago to
What is
build
an
on a
aged
site.
domain? What is an aged domain?
It is a site someone else has dropped. So this site was 18 years old. Someone else had dropped the domain. All the content's gone. So all you're getting is the URL. However, the URL already has almost 1,000 backlinks from great publications and great websites. And it ranks for a lot of keywords, even though there's actually no content there anymore. So what you can do is pick that up and build on it. And I took a course from somebody to learn how to do that. And somebody else I heard on a podcast. It's amazing what you can learn on podcasts.
Yes.
And learned how to build on that and essentially build back the URLs that had quality backlinks. And that site has only been live for about 2 months. And we just made our first affiliate sale a couple of days ago. So like that's how fast the traffic and the money comes back.
How did you find
so
this? What is it called again? A dead site?
An aged domain.
Aged domain. How do you find aged domains?
There are marketplaces. So I used a marketplace called Otis. It's ODYS. I heard about them on a podcast. And the course that I took about aged domains, the person who teaches that course, her name is Shauna Newman. She recommended Otis. And she does recommendations every month where she recommends a few sites on Otis that she thinks people should pick up, that they're valuable and you can build on them quickly. One of the ones she recommended in August of 2022 happened to be almost the exact same thing I was already doing on my travel blog, which is called Travel by Vacation Rental, where me and my other travel writer friends, we review vacation rentals we've stayed in. So, houses and condos and such, versus staying in hotels when we travel. And we review those, and we're an affiliate for Vrbo and for booking.com and a lot of other accommodation kind of places. And so we make affiliate commission when somebody books a place through our link. And that site we started in the spring of 2021, and it was starting to pick up traffic finally once it hit about a year old, and we were getting some affiliate sales. And then this other site came up, and it was basically exactly what we had been doing, except it was solely focused on Europe. And most of what we had been doing was like US, Mexico, Canada, just because those were the places we had all been traveling and had vacation rentals to talk about. So when this came up, I contacted Shauna and I said, do you think this site makes sense for me? I just signed up for your age domains class. I have no idea what I'm doing, but I don't want to miss out on this site because it's so similar to the site I already have. And she was like, buy it now.
Okay. How much
So
how much can I ask? How much was it?
Yeah, you can ask. And I think I remember, I think it was right around $5,000.
Okay.
So it was an investment. And frankly, me and I have a business partner on the travel side. We own that Travel by Vacations rental blog together. And then we also own a business called Travel Writers University together, which I'm sure you and I will get into a little bit. But we had owned those both for about a year and had some money built up in that business. And I went to her, and she only does the writing and the editing. She doesn't do anything on the back end, doesn't know, WordPress all that well, doesn't know SEO, but she trusts me. And I went to her and I said, this is what an age domain is. It's $5,000. What would you think if we took money out of our company to buy this? Here's why I think it's a good investment. And she is the best business partner on the planet. I think it's so hard to find a good business partner. It's like trying to find a spouse. And I got so lucky. I actually met her on that very first press trip I was telling you about, the one where I met all the travel writers. She was one of those writers. And she was one of those people, you just click with and you have so much in common with. And we stayed friends. And during the pandemic, sort of worked on these businesses together. And she just trusted me. And she said, okay, pay for it out of the company. So we bought it with the money we had made on our other travel endeavors. And it's incredible because when you build on fresh domain, a URL that no one's ever had before, which is what we were doing on Travel by Vacation Rental, Google puts you in the sandbox, some people call it, for 6 months, sometimes more than that. It doesn't really Google doesn't pay a lot of attention to you. I think they want to make sure you're going to stick around and that you're creating quality content. And it takes a certain number of pieces on the site to have any real SEO value anyway. And so that site took us about a year before we started seeing good traffic and increased traffic every month. This age domain we bought 2 months ago, it had nothing. So we had to rebuild the pages using some of the URLs we could see backlinks for in the past and put them up there. I put up a post this past Sunday. I had on that post, we had our first affiliate sale by Wednesday.
Wow.
From Sunday to Wednesday on a brand new, that would never happen on a brand new URL that nobody's had before. It happened because that URL existed previously on the former people's website, and it has all these backlinks from other websites coming into it. So as soon as I republished it and it existed again, the traffic started coming in immediately. It's like magic.
Explain this to me. The person you bought the site from or whomever took off all the posts.
What happens is the person who owns the site stops paying for the URL. So usually whoever they say they've registered with GoDaddy will try for a certain period of time to get them to take it back. Like maybe you didn't update your credit card. I had that happen on one of my sites, scariest thing ever. Didn't update my credit card, ignored the emails that came in and almost lost my site. But they'll try for a certain period of time to get you to pick it back up. And then if you don't, that's it. Like it basically gets wiped out in terms of the content that was on the site. And GoDaddy, they do these auctions all the time. They will auction off just the domain, just the URL. And companies like Otis will do research and figure out which domains that have been dropped actually had valuable content previously. Like some domains may get dropped and no one ever built a website. They just sat on it and then they gave it up one day. But sites like Otis, the way I understand it is they'll do their research and they know that that URL has 900 backlinks and it's from really quality places, and their traffic at their peak was like 20,000 visitors a month. And so when I looked on the Otis marketplace, it gave me all that data. It told me how old the URL was, how many backlinks, some of the places the backlinks were for, the top pages, the historical traffic they'd had. But the problem is you get none of the content. So you have to rebuild from scratch.
So are you then, let's say the URL is best places to stay in Venice, right? Or best apartments to stay in Venice, which has a link from, let's say
The Guardian.
Okay.
One of our links was from The Guardian.
The Guardian. So you then see this. So it's a 404. It's a broken link on The Guardian's front. Somewhere they are linking to this. It's not linking to anything. It's like a broken link. So The Guardian could go through and get rid of those links.
Right. They just haven't found it yet.
Okay,
Which
so
you got to do this pretty fast, because you got to do it before not only the people who are linking to you figure out, but before Google figures out that it doesn't exist anymore. It takes Google, apparently, I don't understand enough about that side of it, but it takes Google a little while too to figure out that it doesn't exist. So Google will start sending the traffic to it again as soon as you put it up. And that's why I put that post up on a Sunday and made a sale by Wednesday, because the link juice was already there. Because what I did, so the way I was sort of taught to do it through this course, and the way I did it was I identified the top 20 pages had really big time backlinks, like The Guardian and National Geographic and whatever. It had all these great backlinks. And I figured out the top 20 pages that had those backlinks. And I was able to use my SEO software. Actually, I take it back. My SEO software, Ubersuggest, did not show me anything. Unfortunately, I love Ubersuggest, but not helpful in this situation. Ubersuggest knew that it didn't exist anymore and told me it got no traffic, had no keywords, knew nothing about it. But I knew that wasn't true, because Otis had sent me reports from, I think it was from Ahrefs, showing everything that was in Ahrefs. And I ended up signing up for a service that I actually really like, that I've never heard anyone talk about, but it's called SERPstat. And I was able to see in SERPstat all the pages that had ranking keywords, what all those ranking keywords were. And I identified the top 20 pages in terms of rankings and traffic. And that was priority number one, and is what we just finished, was rebuilding those 20 pages. So we had to build pages that had identical URLs. I went on the Wayback Machine and pulled what the site used to look like. And I was able to see what they had on their page. Now, some people, I've listened to a lot of podcasts on this, some people will swipe what was on the old site. They won't rewrite it. I'm a lawyer. I would never do that. And I'm a journalist. Like, that's plagiarism. It's copyright infringement. It's a whole host of things that I'm not going to do. However, I didn't want their old visitors to come to my site and be like jarred by a completely different format.
Yeah.
So I formatted it the same. Like, for example, the page that had the sale the other day is a page that's about places to stay in London. And the way they had done their pages was they had a list of like neighborhoods or towns within a bigger area, and they gave a few sentences on each one, and then they had a list of rental properties after that. And actually, they manage some properties themselves, so they're a little different than what we're doing, because they manage their own. But I recreated it. I totally rewrote what it said for each town, but I kept the same towns they had. And then I found my own property. So we're a Vrbo affiliate. I got into Vrbo's UK program. And then I went and found London properties that had high reviews from the people who'd stayed in them. And I did a list of like 8 or 10 properties in London with my affiliate links. And somebody booked one of those properties 4 days later.
One of the best things about doing my podcast, doing over 250 episodes, is I get to see what a lot of successful bloggers do, and there are patterns. So I put together a one-page free digital download where I identify the 5 secrets successful bloggers all know and do in their businesses. To grab this, go to milotree.com/secrets and see how many of these you're doing. Again, milotree.com/secrets. And now back to the show. This whole idea of niche blogging has really exploded. I'm in the niche blogging community on Twitter. Like, I just see it all. And I had somebody on my podcast, Chelsea Clarke, talking about how she's buying and selling blogs, and blogs are now assets. Before this, they were like our babies, and they still are. But there's now this whole idea of like, you are building an asset, just like it's a stock or a piece of land.
People flip them like they flip houses. In fact,
Absolutely.
Shauna, who I was talking about, that's what she does. And I initially thought that's what I was going to do, was buy a site, build it back up, and then turn around and sell it and flip, because that sounded like fun to me, to flip a site. But this site I won't flip. It's so closely aligned to our other site that this one we plan to hold on to. I definitely, in the future, I watch that Otis Marketplace and a couple of others. And down the road, I can't add another one on my plate right now, but down the road, I want to add another one and try flipping just because I like a new challenge.
I love that. Okay. So do you hire a writer? Are you doing the writing? Well, how does this work? Are you, Jaspering this whole thing?
No, so we're in a kind of interesting situation on the travel front in that because we're travel writers, we have a lot of friends who are travel writers. And then we acquired last year a membership community of travel writers that we had my business partner and I, both taught in that program. And we found out that they were just going to close their membership and just shut it down to work on some other business units that they had. And we went to them and we said, wait, do not close it down. It's making money. Let us just take it over. There were some things we wanted to change about it, but we wanted to take it over. So we've done that. And, part of the benefit has been that we have this huge community of travel writers. They often need more guest posts and need to write more to build up their portfolio to write for bigger publications that they might want to write for. And so we have totally gotten by at this point on all of our travel writer friends and members in our community writing on both our travel by vacation rental site and now our new cottages site. So we have not done any of the AI platforms or hired any outside writers. That being said, I was just telling my husband and my business partner that especially for the new site, we've got such great content needs there because we need to recreate some of these pages quickly that I think we will have to go outside of our normal community and figure out how to get some folks to help us with that. But my husband and I, both being journalists and really my travel writing friend being a journalist too, I'm just not happy with the output I have gotten from the AI software. That I've tried a few and have not been in love with it. And even some of the writers I've hired have not worked out well. And so I try to get away without hiring anybody as long as I can, but I know I'm going to have to for this new site.
Well, do you pay the travel writers in your group?
So we did not in the beginning, and we told them basically, if you'll give us breathing room to recoup some of our expenses and start actually getting affiliate revenue in the door, then we will start paying. So we really have just reached that point now and just had the conversation the other day about what we will start paying per post. Most of the people that have written needed the clips to be able to pitch to bigger publications.
And I'm sure the
links we're sort of happy to.
And all that. Yeah. Yep. I get it. Now, first of all, I think you and your husband, I was going to say,
I should add to that too. One of the big benefits to travel writing is that maybe people on the outside don't know is that tourism boards, hotels, restaurants, attractions will generally either comp or offer a media rate for people who are writing about them. Now, some publications don't let you do that. For example, my husband just had a piece accepted recently by the BBC, and then he told them it was from a press trip, and they told him, you can't write it. A lot of big time publications that have stringent standards for journalism won't let you accept something free from someone you're going to write about. But that's not the case for, most bloggers and a lot of niche sites. The owners of those generally don't care about that. You disclose it, but they don't mind. And so a lot of the folks who've written for our travel by vacation rental site, they did it to get a vacation rental somewhere for free. Like one of our members just had 3 nights in Key West in a house there. We just had a 10-bedroom house in Outer Banks, North Carolina, that we took a group of writers for a travel writing retreat. That was comped by the property management company in exchange for us writing about the house. And so even when we weren't paying writers, we were teaching writers how to use this thing they were going to write for our site to go stay somewhere for free.
Nice.
So
well, I feel like
travel writing is a little different in that
way. You
way.
need to be taking now a month-long vacation through Europe so you can create content. You can write it off on your taxes. You get to stay at all these wonderful places, and then you get to do
exactly
what you love.
I told my husband. I just told my husband, I was like, I was doing research and here's like a list of articles we need on some specific things in Paris. I think we should go to Paris. And he was like, we've been to Paris. We can write about it without going there. I'm like, but we could go there and get fresh new pictures.
And then we could write about Paris in Paris.
Exactly. Yeah. So that is definitely the plan. But we've been, the other site we've had a little longer, and my husband and myself, but also my business partner and so many of our writers have gotten houses and condos all across the United States and Mexico and Canada for free in exchange for writing a feature about them on the site. And so it's interesting because I'm in a mastermind right now with other site owners, and they talk about where they get writers from and what they're paying them. And I'm like, well, it's a little different in travel because like people want the free travel sometimes more than they care about how much you're paying per article. So it's a little different animal altogether. But I'm a big believer in paying writers because I am a writer. And so our deal with our community was like, give us time to start making money. And as soon as we're making money on the site, we will cut you in on that. And I think going forward too, if somebody writes a feature about a specific property, I want to do a revenue split with them on any affiliate revenue that comes in, because I can see which property it came in from. And then I want to do a revenue split. So if your piece manages to get a lot of people to book that house, I want you to be able to benefit more from that.
That's very smart. That's a wonderful model, by the way, because it's a win-win.
Yeah.
I think that's great. Okay. How do you keep your hands or your fingers in so many pots? We started the before I pressed record. I asked you that question. How do you do it? I have I'm managing Catch My Party and our pop-up app and the podcast and now Milo Tree Cart. And I feel like it's a lot.
Yeah.
How do you do it?
Well, the first thing I always tell people is I didn't start all my sites at the same time. Like my business at college sports site is now 11 years old, so by the time I hired Paula at the end of 2019, it was a little over 8 years old at that point, and had hundreds of posts on it. It already ranked really well. I was just trying to tweak a few things to get ready for something I knew was coming in college sports. And so she did that site audit, and I wasn't so much writing new content as making some small tweaks on old content.
Right.
And then I started the travel by vacation rental early 2021, but I have a business partner and I have my husband. I have my business partner's husband. We have all these travel writers who are writing for us. Like it's not just me on that site. In fact, I built the site out because I like doing that part, and I write some stuff on there. But really, the only other thing that I do is a little SEO work on the back end. So a travel writer writes a piece. My business partner, Noreen, edits it. We have an assembly line. She sends it to my husband. My husband loads it into WordPress, gets it formatted, gets all the photos put in there, does all the alt tags on the photos. Then I come in, I do some SEO research on Uber Suggest. I make some tweaks to subheadings and that kind of thing. I grab the affiliate links and put them in, and then hit publish. And so because we've got that assembly line, by the time something makes it to me, I spend less than half an hour putting each post up. And for some, it's 5 or 10 minutes. Depending on how well I know the place and if we've had other content in that space before. So that's not a huge time commitment for me. Our community was already sort of running seamlessly when we took it over. And so it's just been a matter of bringing in guest experts. Like you've already come into the group once, and we're about to have you a second time. So sitting down and, doing an hour-long Zoom with a guest expert like that. And then this new site we bought in 2022. So I would never, ever start 2 blogs at the same time. It's too hard. I don't think you can get 2 up and running and do a good job with 2 at the same time. So mine have been really staggered over time. And I have other people, I've got my husband and my business partner on the travel side. On the sports side, I have interns from sports management and journalism programs. And one school in particular, I work with regularly, and they send me someone every quarter who has to do 40 hours a week in order to get their credit for that semester. So I get these fellows from one journalism program. And so I'm not doing any of it alone, is the short answer, but each site looks a little different.
No, I would say the same thing. I think of my businesses as children. And like infants need so much care. Exactly. And then as they get a little older, they get more independent. Catch My Party, I have my assistant, and I oversee what's going on and I approve like our content. We go through our content calendar, but ultimately she's doing, and then I've got some extra people working on that site as well, but she's like the main. Without her, I would be totally lost. Like she's the boss of Catch My Party. And then our pop-up app works and it works really well. And we've optimized it and we have like that works. And now our new baby is Milo Tree Cart, and that's getting so much attention. It needs its diaper changed all the time.
Yep.
And it's going through that growth phase. You know, if you think about like an infant or a baby, a newborn to one, like how big they get and how much they grow and how much they change. That's the phase I'm in right now. So I completely understand what you're talking about. And I agree with you. It's much easier than say birthing twins.
Yeah. My husband's a twin, so I have heard the stories from my mother-in-law about what it was like trying to feed two of them at once.
Oh my gosh. Yes. All right. So what about your business are you most excited about right now?
I'm really into the SEO side of the websites right now. That was something I knew very little about when I first heard Paula on your podcast. Like almost everything I know about SEO, I've learned in the last 2.5 years or so. I had what I call accidental SEO on my sports website because I had just written there for so long. I had hundreds of posts over a bunch of years on a very niche topic that not very many people write about. And I had those great backlinks coming from big media organizations. So when I came to Paula, that site actually had pretty good SEO already, but it could be better. And I knew I was getting ready for sort of a shifting landscape in college sports. So she helped me fix that. But really what I learned from her and on your podcast and on a few other podcasts that I listened to and groups I joined and courses I took, I've been able to put into action to not only grow the sports website. I mean, just to give people an idea of how much it changed. When I first started listening to your podcast and heard Paula the first time, I was doing about 3,500 page views a month on business and college sports. It was not my full-time job. We haven't even talked about this and we don't need to get down this rabbit hole, but I owned a PR agency for a few years and that was my full-time income and what I was focusing on full-time. So I wasn't writing that often for business and college sports. Really the 3,500 a month was all coming from old posts that just had good SEO. And then I worked with Paula and now I average 35,000 a month. So huge growth there. And during football season is when I have my biggest time of year. And last December, I hit my all-time high for the website because that's the biggest month for me as you go into college football bowl season. I did 125,000 page views.
Wow.
So from 3,500, the first time I ever heard Paula, to 100. I sent her an email as soon as the month was over and I saw the 125,000. I sent her an email and said, I cannot believe my site just did 125,000 page views in a month. And I think in January, I did 80,000. So December, January are the best time of year for that content. And then now since then, I've gone back. I'm a pretty steady 35,000 a month outside of those 2 months. And I hope to continue to grow that, but that's where I'm at right now. And so I'm just continuing to add to my SEO knowledge because I've seen what little I've learned already, how much of a difference it's made in that old website, but also how quickly it's allowing me to make money on these newer travel sites. But I know I still have a lot to learn. And so I'm really excited about being able to build on this foundation and grow all those sites because now this is I make my full-time money from the sports website and the travel business. And I do a lot of speaking, but all the speaking and consulting I do comes from the sports website. So all my current income really comes from the sports website or the travel business.
So very quickly, would you go through your process after somebody has submitted the travel post to you and your partner now has edited it? Your husband has entered it into WordPress with alt tags for the photos. What do you do to optimize it that takes you somewhere between 5 and 30 minutes?
I go into Uber Suggest, and usually the first thing, because all of our posts are about vacation rentals, it makes it pretty easy. So I go into Uber Suggest, and let's say it is a Temecula vacation rental. So Uber Suggest will let you put in up to 3 terms. It used to be you only put in one at a time, but now you can put in 3. So I'll put in 3 variations of what I think someone would type into Google to find a vacation rental in Temecula. So I'll probably do something like Temecula vacation rental first. And then I might do vacation rental in Temecula. If I know the area really well, like here where I live on Amelia Island in Florida, and most of the rentals here are condos, not houses necessarily. So I might search like vacation, or I'm sorry, might search like condo rentals on Amelia Island for here, because I know it's more likely to be people might type in condo instead of the words vacation rental. So I'll try to come up with 3 different phrases of what I think people would type into Google if they were going on vacation and looking for a vacation rental there. And then Uber Suggest will bring you up a huge, I've got a paid plan, so it brings up a huge list of keyword terms for me, and it tells me the search volume on those terms, how hard it's going to be to rank for those. And now, so what I love about Uber Suggest, and it's why I won't switch to Ahrefs, even though my mastermind is trying to peer pressure me into it right now. There's a little button on Uber Suggest now when you're on that keyword idea screen that says page 1 ranking potential. Then I can hit that button and it'll filter through that list it just gave me, and it'll tell me based on my website which one of those I have the best chance at getting on page 1 for. And I have just been trusting it and doing what it says, and it's been working.
So you'll put make sure to
works.
Sprinkle those keywords in the text or in a heading.
So I will generally choose, several different variations, because it used to be you had to pick like one term and people would tell you had to put it in 15 different times or whatever their number was. Everybody's number was different, but Google's smarter than that. Google understands variations on a term. And so when I get that list, I will find several different variations on that same idea. I will pick one as sort of my focus keyword. Like I use Yoast, so I'll pick one that's going to be my Yoast. And that main one I will make sure is in our headline, so in our title of our post. And I know you're supposed to put it as close to the front as you can, but for us, I would end up putting vacation rental at the front over and over and over and over and over. And I think our site would look ridiculous. So I don't always follow that, but I put it somewhere in the headline. And then I try to put it in at least one of the subheadings, and try to work it into the first paragraph and the last paragraph. That's like roughly what I'm trying to do. And then some of those other related keywords, I can usually work into other places in the text or in the subheadings. But I don't necessarily shoot for a certain number. I just want to make sure I have some in there, but then I'll go back and tweak it later. Like we had a post that really wasn't doing much of anything. My business partner, Noreen, wrote it. It wasn't really going anywhere. And it was about how she bought essentially timeshare through Marriott and had a great experience. And so few people have good timeshare experiences. So she wrote about it, and I had done the keyword research. We put the post up. It did a little bit because she pushed it on social, and then it died. So several months later, I was looking back through Uber Suggest, and it was telling me pages I could improve. I love Uber Suggest because it gives you a lot of suggestions for how to fix things. And it mentioned that I should work in, like, I think they're called, it's not, they don't call them timeshares. It's Marriott Vacation Club, I think. And Uber Suggest said, like, try working in Marriott Vacation Club review. We didn't have the word review in our headline. I added the word review in our headline, and I show people in our travel group all the time the Google Analytics like graph, and it's like you see the spike when she first posted it, and then it's just flat and is basically nothing. And then you see the date I changed the headline, and from that very next day, it just starts going up. As soon as I changed the headline, it started going up. And today, I changed that headline July of 2022. Now we're recording this in October of 2022. That is still the #1 post on our website every single month since then. Because I changed one word. I put one extra word in the headline.
That is so Interesting. I think
I
that,
love Uber Suggest. I think Uber Suggest is so good. And there's no affiliate link for Uber
yeah,
Suggest.
yeah,
And I
yeah.
talk about it all the time. It's genuinely just because it is so easy to follow if you're somebody who doesn't really know SEO yet and you're just at that like beginner level. It will feed you things to do and feed you suggestions. And I trust it and I do what it says. And it has worked not just for our travel site, it's worked for my husband's art site, it's worked for my sports site. Like I'm using it on all of our sites and they've all seen huge improvement as I implement the things Uber Suggest tells me to.
That's amazing. And I've used it and I paid for it, then I canceled it, but I might, based on this conversation, resubscribe because I love Neil Patel and I was in there early. So I'm going to go back and revisit it. Now, this is what I think you are saying when it comes to SEO. You are thinking about search intent all the time.
Yes.
It is
Absolutely.
not
I'm thinking,
about,
what does someone type in Google when they sit down and they're looking for this thing? How are they going to word it? And one of the best things you can do is go in Google, type in what you think they're saying, and
scroll to the bottom.
look at those related searches, because sometimes what you're calling something is just not the language someone else is using. They're using a synonym for it. If you used that instead, you'll see your post do better.
Yeah. And I always talk about this, like how hard it is for us to get out of ourselves. I see the world through me. I see, I'm thinking to myself, I hope Kristi likes me. I'm having all these
Of course I do.
you know what I mean? Like we can't help but be in ourselves. And I think that when you think about search intent, you have to get out of yourself and think about the random
Yeah.
person on Google and how they're going to interact with your content. And they don't necessarily in, say, your recipe post want to really hear about your grandma, even though you love your grandma so much and this recipe came from her. It's like nobody cares. And so the idea, they care about their own grandma. And I think that that is a very powerful message that I continually have to hear and learn just in my own life. But when it comes to SEO, I think it is super powerful.
It is. And just thinking about how someone else, I'm sure I heard that on your podcast somewhere, and that it changed how I was looking at things, because now one of the first things I do, and the vacation rental stuff, I do it for less because we have such a niche topic. I know it really well now, and I don't do this as much for that. But for my sports website, I often go to Google and will type something in before I go to Uber Suggest, just to see how other people are wording it, because I'm a subject matter expert on a very niche topic inside college sports. For those of you who follow college sports, it's the new name, image, and likeness legislation. And there's certain words I use because I'm a lawyer and because I know the topic so well. But like a high school athlete or their parent is saying things totally different than I am, because I know it so well and they don't, and they're just learning about it. And so a lot of times I go to Google and I look not just at the related searches at the bottom, but usually a third of the way down the page, you'll have the questions people ask, the little expandable sections with the questions. I look at those to see what are people asking. And I just on a sports post the other day, this post has been ranking number 3 in Google for months and months and months, which 3 is great, but I'm competitive and I want 1. And so I went and I looked at what those questions were. I added 3 of those questions, which I think are no brainer. Like, how does anyone not know these kind of things? So they weren't in the article because it was like, by the time somebody gets to my article, they know these things. However, I don't think they do. So I put those 3 questions in my post and answered them. And I shot up to 2 already, and I am going to take 1.
I love that. I think that is so great. Kristi, you have shared so much great insights. So if people want to reach out to you to hear about, you have so many things that you've shared. If they have a sports question, if they have a travel writer question, if they have an SEO question, if they have a membership question, if they have a how to buy a domain question, how can they reach out to you, see what you're doing, see your blogs? Where's the best place for them to go?
My email is kristi@kristidosh.com. And
Wait,
I'm
spell
on
it. Spell it.
It's KRISTI at KristiDosh.com. So Kristi at KristiDosh.com. And all the social media platforms, the same name, it's Sports Biz Miss. So sports and then BIZMISS. And so I check my DMs and I'm on all those platforms all the time. And whether it's sports or it's travel, you can still get me fastest and best through those, just because that's where I spend the majority of my time. And, always happy to answer any questions people have or point them in the right direction or tell them who I used to learn something, because I am just so appreciative of like how this has changed my life and my husband's life. He left his full-time job in sports radio beginning of 2021 to run his art and travel site full-time. And so we've both been able to change our careers through this, and, would love to give back and help anybody we can.
I love that. Well, I have to say, Kristi, I'm so glad we're friends. And thank you so much for finally coming on the show.
Yes, thank you for having me. I'm so excited and always love spending time with you, Jillian.
I hope you guys like this episode. As you could probably tell, I am a big fan of Kristi's. I love her boldness. I love her willingness to try new things, to buy a membership here, to start a new blog here, to monetize in a whole host of ways. I just feel like she has that entrepreneurial spirit. And in fact, after we recorded this episode, she led her first paid workshop using MiloTreeCart, and she loved it. And she thought it was so easy. And she's made $500 just doing a 1-hour paid workshop and then reselling it. And she was so excited and was messaging me on Facebook, telling me how delighted she was with the whole process. If selling digital products is something you want to explore in 2023, go purchase MiloTreeCart so you can come to my VIP workshop. I promise you it will be worth it. Head to MiloTreeCart.com, purchase, you will hear from me. Also, I will do a personal product review of your first digital product, because all I want for you is to be successful and make lots of money. And I will see you here again next week.